Hey y'all, welcome to Life with Ajane. I'm Ajane. This is the Lawfully Her series. So, I'm sitting here. What have I done this week? So, this week I made some more progress. I actually worked on my GPA addendum. So, long story short with that, my GPA is like solid, but it's not like amazing. And with grade inflation and all this other stuff going on, and just law school GPAs already being high in general, my GPA does not stand out at all. It's usually not even 25th percentile. And then I took when I was in high school, I got into Harvard for a summer school program, and I took physics. I took a year's worth of physics in one summer with no prior physics experience. And in that course, I got a passing grade, but I didn't get an A. I got a C. So at the time, I was proud of myself. It's like, oh my gosh, I passed. I got this year's worth of credit for physics. And I did it. I did it as a high schooler. I was so proud of myself. Because for me at that point, school is about overcoming struggle. A lot of my life is just overcoming struggle. How hard can you push? Can you overcome? Can you achieve? And it wasn't until later in life, and I had little hints along the way, but it wasn't until later in life that I fully accepted the fact that that's just honestly not the best way to go about doing things in life. I have learned over time that you want to do things that you're strong at, that you're naturally good at or have an affinity for and can excel at, so that you can show your potential through how much you excel versus how much you've overcome. Because the unfortunate reality is that in our country, in our world, a lot of the times people don't really respect journey traveled as much as they might say they do, or just as much as you might think. So yeah, I didn't learn that lesson until later, until situations like this where I'm applying for school and it's like, oh, if it's not 3.839, what are we talking about? If it's not 4.0, you can get over 4.0. I didn't even know that was possible. I don't think it was possible in my school for the time that I went either. But yeah, that's what I'm up against. So just writing a GPA addendum that's not doing too much. I actually went and I looked at some things that I did the first time around that I applied, and there's just so much room for growth. So I'm gonna get into that in just a second. But one thing I wanted to talk about with that was a while ago on my first Lawfully Hers video, where I'm sitting here talking to you all, I saw a comment and it got deleted, and I don't know what happened. I'm so sad too, because I actually wanted to respond to that whole comment. But somebody did mention something about, why did I start this process again? Why am I applying again? Something like that. And I kind of want to get into that a little bit right now. A little bit, because I don't want this to be too long, and I also want to share something with you all about some growth. So, long story short, I applied a couple of years ago. It was 2022. Yes, it was the 2022 cycle. And I had a 166 on my LSAT. GPA circumstances, like I just told you all. And when I applied, I did well. My dream school was a particular school that I will share later. Once this whole process is done, I'll share that with you all later. I just don't want to share too much information now, and then it somehow do something weird with my process. And in the case that somebody from admissions is watching this video. So we're gonna keep that here. But I got into my dream school, we'll say that. And it was a top school, we'll say that. And I was very excited. I was very, very, very excited. I was elated. But I was looking for full tuition going to that school, and I didn't pull it off. And I think I thought about it and I asked some questions, and when I looked at things, I was like, you know what? I think if I had stronger stats, I might be able to pull this off and get full tuition. And once I found LSAT Demon, if you watch my other videos, you know that I used LSAT Demon to get to where I was on the LSAT. Once I found out that, you know what, I think I can actually like unlock this test, this method is making sense to me, I was like, you know what, I'm reapplying. I'm gonna get higher stats and hopefully I can get into this school again. And when I get into the school again, I'll have that full tuition offer I'm looking for. So that's what set me off on this trajectory again. I was seeking money along with the school that I wanted to be at. That way I'm just not stressed about the finances of the situation. I know that I put myself in the best position possible. Actually, when you think about it, it's not really like the money thing. It's just like I knew I could do better in my process for myself and my family, right? Like, in how that showed up was through money, but like I just knew I could do better. And I felt like I was settling if I went then and there, and I could do better. I wanted to show up better in that process. I think that's a more accurate description of what I went through. So yeah, here I am, and I did better, and I'm very happy because I think when I applied this time, I put myself in a much better standing to get that full tuition this time versus last time. Last time, I think I was at like 25th percentile. Yeah, I was at 25th percentile. So I got in 25th percentile, and I had a solid tuition offer that considered merit and like financial circumstance. I had a solid tuition offer given that I was at 25th percentile for LSAT. GPA, we already know the story there. I would also like to note though that my GPA wasn't like 3.839, but I was a part of multiple honor societies. I took honors classes, I took graduate courses. But if I had to redo this whole thing over again, a couple things I would change. There was one C that I got my whole time in undergrad. I wish that I would, the earliest of times, I knew that class was not going to go well. I wish I would drop the class and went on to a new one. Why didn't I do it? Well, I was still in this mindset. I told you, I didn't learn this until later. I was in the mindset, you got to fight through it. You can do it, right? And show and prove it. Prove it to who? Prove it to who? Myself? I already know who I am. This is my 30-year-old self talking to my 20-year-old self. Anyway, yeah, I stuck it through that course and I should have dropped it. When I didn't drop the course and I saw that grade, I should have requested a pass-fail versus keeping that C. I didn't know that that was an option though. I didn't know that was an option until much, much later. I'm listening to LSAT Demon and they talk about how you can request your grades to be changed to pass-fail, especially considering you're applying to law school. The unfortunate part about the situation now is I'm so far removed from when I graduated, I can't do it. So anyway, I would change that if I could, but I did. I can't. Dang, what was I talking about? See, this pregnancy brain is a trip. I'm gonna get up and walk around because I think this air unit might be messing with my stuff a little bit. And I'm tired of the sun kind of blocking my spot. Okay, so anyway, I know I was talking about things I would change this time around, and I mainly want to talk about that because I think it'd be helpful to, it's like if you're in a situation now where you're not that far removed from school, like maybe you're a year or two out from school and you got like a C on there on your grades, on your transcripts, you might be able to get that changed to pass-fail. You might be able to go talk to the school, and that might be in their policy where you can request that. So do better than I was able to do and go shift that over so that it can work in your favor, because a pass, I think it's considered like an A weighted. Don't quote me on that. I have to look it up. But I know it does much better for your LSAC GPA than that C would. So yeah, my GPA is what it is. I'm not gonna linger on this too much more. My LSAT is very strong, and I'm now almost 10 years removed from my GPA. So this week that's passed, I worked on my GPA addendum, and I think it's solid. Like, it's just saying, essentially, you know, I'm almost 10 years removed. I've done so many things, so many wonderful things since I've graduated to show that I know how to work hard. I know how to critically think. I know how to manage my time and energy. I know how to be successful. So that's what I'm focusing on in that GPA addendum. And I'm going to try and keep it as short and sweet as possible. And yeah, I think that's pretty much done too. Like, I don't really see a need to go too much further into that. What I did recently was I actually went and I took all of my old application materials from my other computer and I downloaded them on this computer so I could look at them all, and I just compared and contrasted the tone and like what I talked about. I already see a huge improvement and just like how I represent things and the story about like my GPA. I just feel like it just shouldn't be this long narrative of see my potential, because every other piece of my application is going to speak to my potential. I'm just addressing this in case anybody has questions. Like, one thing I've learned from listening to podcasts, which I'm going to do a video actually on the resources, more resources that I think are helpful for your law school journey, especially again, given that I did have some success with my first time applying to law school. And I'm just going to do that for free. Like, I was thinking about it and reflecting on it, praying a little bit, and the reason that I'm doing this channel is in major part to help with accessibility. And so I don't want to put everything behind a paywall. I feel like that goes against the reason I'm doing this. Yes, I do want to make money. Yes, that would be helpful for my time and energy and for my family. But I think that I can do that through other methods. I think that there's enough people that need help with tutoring on LSAT. Speaking of which, you need some help on tutoring with LSAT, I do that. Shout out to my Ko-fi. Go look it down in the description box. I'll have the link. I'm going to do that on every one of my like law school related videos. I'll have the link to my Ko-fi. I do offer tutoring. I think that right now you want to get in because my rate is quite amazing if you sign up for the membership plan. Really short about that. Membership plan, $55 for the highest tier of membership, in which you would get one free personal tutoring session for an hour, one free group tutoring session for an hour, and that's for $55. So that's 2 hours tutoring for $55. Please, just check it out. And you know, after a certain amount of people, I'm gonna have to increase my rates. So I would just suggest, you need some help and you can afford $55 a month, chime on in. Oh, mind you, not only do I do the individual tutoring and the group tutoring, so you get that, but I also give you like free downloadables and you get free access to all of the other pre-recorded sessions. So yeah, you're gonna want to check that out. I think it's pretty great. I think it's very affordable, and it's for private tutoring versus, a software you're on your own. You have to figure out what you're doing. You feel listless and lost. Come on over. So anyway, in terms of the things that you have to pay for, I think I'm gonna just work on that right now. You can also go to my website, robbiefixconsulting.com, fill out inquiry form. You can also go look and get a link to my Ko-fi from there. That's just my little selfless plug there. So that's what I'll be asking for money for right now. The other things, general information, stuff that's already out there, I'm just giving to you right now. I'm just gonna put in these videos. It's a labor of love. I'm doing this for you, just to help you. So you're welcome. But anyway, one thing that I've learned from listening to these podcasts and things is like these supplemental essays, these addendums, are really there for like answering questions. Like, you don't want questions left in your application. Like, if there's like what's up with this? They're so strong in all these other areas, but why does this look like that? And you don't answer it, sometimes that can work against you. It sounds like most often it is the case that it will work against you. So what I mean is, right, like if there's a gap about what's up with the GPA, maybe somebody makes up a whole narrative that just is not in your favor, and they're kind of like, and push you to the side. Maybe. Not guaranteed. I don't know how likely. but I've heard from listening to podcasts, from like people who actually work in admissions, right? These are admissions professionals, that's something that's important, is to fill in those gaps, fill in those questions that people might have from your application. So that's the reason you're doing it, which means that it just doesn't need to be all that complicated. The simpler, the better. And I don't think that it should be something where you're sitting in the trauma or the problems of it all. I think it just should be solution oriented. I'm a great student. I see that this is a thing, but maybe you had upward trajectory. Maybe you had a tough first semester, first year, and then you look at the grades and they go upward trajectory. I think for my case, no upward trajectory. It's pretty much the same kind of deal. Generally good grades, but like nothing stellar the whole time. I was going through some stuff. We'll get to that later. But I'm not even going to explain that. I'm just going to be like, hey, listen, this is my undergrad GPA. These are the things that I was doing. This is what shows my skill. Here I am. Let's focus on everything else great. So, yeah. That's that. So I did my GPA addendum. My personal statement, I touched up on that a little bit. I haven't done too much. Mostly at this point, I have downloaded my stuff from last time and just been looking over it. And boy, night and day already with the personal statement piece. I almost was like, who is this girl that was writing before? I think that I had a solid personal statement before, but I just think that my personal statement now is going to be much stronger. I think that it's much more enjoyable. Last time I was like, there's a side of me that is very like structure and disciplined and to the point, and these are things I want to work on. Here's how I'm going to do it. Boom, 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 boom. Right? That's like the tone that I have with that kind of businessy mindset. And I didn't allow my creative self to show itself in this essay. And I think that that's just a huge potential for growth. What I want to do is I'm going to read at least some of this personal statement from last time so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Because when I looked at it, I was like, powerful story, but it could be told in a much more dynamic way. I'm going to read the first paragraph from my personal statement for you all so that you can just kind of get the general sense of what I'm talking about here. Before I read this, light trigger warning. I do have references to sexual assault. I'm not going into any kind of nitty-gritty detail. It's just there. So, there you go. Trigger warning. If you cannot handle this, skip ahead about a minute or so. Okay. You just gonna sit there and watch? These words from my childhood have haunted me as an adult in the world of research. I am a survivor of a household that suffered from domestic violence and a drug-abusing father. And I personally survived sexual abuse and assault from that same father, my biological father. Time and time again, I watched as my mother's body and eventually my body were subjected to violence and exploitation without sufficient protection by anyone or anything. During graduate school, I was finally in a place mentally and emotionally where I could connect that history to the societal structures that have failed me and my family. Specifically, I started to research colonization's general impact on Black women, particularly on Black women's bodies via biocolonialism. I started to speak on the lack of protection and active violation of Black women's bodies through systems such as the environment and healthcare. Okay, so the rest of that essay is just essentially going on to talk about more of my context and living in this kind of space and wanting to connect these things together, and my pregnancy experience and how that tied into that narrative about Black women's bodies, exploitation, colonialism. And then what I plan to do in law school, which is means of studying health law, critical race theory, engaging in praxis, which is the combination of practice with theory, and putting all that together. So, I mean, it's not horrible. I actually think, like, it's good. But I just see so much more potential. in comparison, let me go ahead and just start you off with this draft that I'm working on now. I'll read you the first paragraph and you can kind of compare for yourself. And then I'll note some things of how I see those things showing up differently. This is a rough draft, so, you know. But I already see a huge difference, and I'll touch on that soon. I grabbed the final piece with my left hand and smiled. All of my hours of focus and patience had come down to this moment. I looked over the picture I reconstructed one final time with my eyes and felt the texture of the image with my right hand. The many ridges and bumps in each section reminded me of the many moments I spent in this quiet space, toiling away and finding truth and beauty in small sections with each connecting piece. Pieces became sections, sections became a collective. After my last touch, I took the final piece from my left hand and ever so carefully placed it in the final open position on the board. I felt it gently crunch as I pushed it into place, and the satisfaction I felt was overwhelming. I stood up from the table and took 2 steps back. With a deep breath, I looked over the result of my many hours of concentration and pattern recognition. I finally did it. I finally pieced together my first 2,000-piece puzzle. I just feel like that's fire. I'm sorry. So, how I'm gonna take that, I might edit it down a little bit, especially if I need space, but I think this is a strong intro. So what I'm gonna do with that is I'm gonna take that and then talk about, again, my love for puzzles, and then how I connect that to practices in my life in which I connect things. I notice patterns about things, and I bring those into a space of action. So I'm using that puzzle activity, that hobby that I have, that is really a passion, more than a hobby, but passionate hobby that I have, and I am connecting it into the things that I do and showing up, and how I show up in the world as someone who's passionate about justice. So already what I noticed, right? I'm still gonna address the things that I've been through in my family. Again, I'll touch on that like trauma piece and all that later. I don't know if I'm gonna do that in this Awfully Her space. I'm gonna do it somewhere else, but I do plan to tell my story to you all a little bit more about that situation. That's gonna have to be relaxed, maybe a glass of wine, and just talking about that journey. But here's the thing. I just feel like in this personal statement, I want to show the space of light and a little bit of whimsicality that I have right now about my life. I think when I wrote this in 2022, I was largely in a space of having processed what I had been through, and I had rebuilt my life and was in a much better space. But it just still seems so, like that first essay that I read you a paragraph from, it just still felt so dark. And I don't know. I don't want everything to be so dark and serious. I've been through some dark things. I've been through some serious things. But I don't want to sit in that. I want to show more of who I am. Like, I'm not just the person who's been assaulted and is really steadily focused on biocolonialism and exploitation and colonialism. Like, I'm more than that. It's a core part of who I am and what I'm interested in. But what I'm trying to say is, like, in terms of my personality, I'm like a really like happy, supportive, fun person. I love goofy things. I love nerdy things. I love supporting people and being nerdy and goofy. I love just like happy, light spaces because I've been through so much. So I just want to show that. And yeah, I am still a very serious person at the same time. Gemini, you know, it comes together how it comes together. But yeah, I'm gonna show up a little bit differently this time. And I just felt so good. Like I can put myself right there in that space. I don't know if I felt myself doing hand motions as I was reading this new one, and I just know that the fact that I can feel myself and place myself in that space, and it feels so fun to do, I feel like I'm gonna have a fun essay for my readers. And that makes me excited. That makes me happy. And that's the part of myself where I get to bring the happy to someone else. So, yeah, I just think night and day. That part about my trauma, I'm gonna have like this much. I might have like a little bit of a sentence in there because it still matters very much so. That experience of dealing with a household of abuse and trauma and having survived some violations of my body by my own father, my blood father, that has definitely shaped the context of my life, and it's what initially got me interested in pursuing the law. Going through court case and being called to testify and not being used, but asking all these questions about the courts and having that experience firsthand, and then reflecting on how my father had been in and out of courts his whole life, like all of that has led me to where I am in pursuing the law in part. But what's also helped me to pursue the law in part is seeing the potential that it has to bring the light, to bring the security, to bring the equity. So I want to sit that. That's what I'm gonna do. Yeah, so it's still gonna be there. It's gonna be this much instead of this much. And I think that's gonna fare well for me in these essays. Because I think, especially in listening to, again, podcasts from these professionals who work in the space, there's just a lot of people who kind of sit in that darkness. And you can learn a lot in that darkness. Shadow work. For my people on the more, like, ancestral, spiritual side of things. You can learn a lot in the dark. My mind went to a whole bunch of theory spaces that I'm not going to get into right now. But that's just not where I'm at right now. I'm in a space of light and love, and I'm gonna reflect the light and the love, and bring that to the forefront. And just being honest with you, I think that that's more consumable for the people who are doing this work and trying to figure out if they're gonna admit you to their school or not. Also, I think just being straight, it's gonna be clear that I'm a black woman from some of the things that I address, and there's already a perception of black women being angry. We know this, a story, tried and true. And so I don't want to bring like angry black woman vibes to my stuff. I know that that's full of crap and that I shouldn't have to worry about that. But reality serves as you never know who's reading your stuff and if that's just what they get. So I'm going to do as much work to combat that as possible. Yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm excited to keep working on this draft. I think over the course of the next week, again, I'm going to do some more comparison contrastings. I got a list of essays that I worked on a couple years ago. When I submitted my apps, and just going to work on those. And yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm still working, still grinding. I think by the end of August, I'll be done with my personal statement, my GPA addendum, my resume. I'm going to touch that up a little bit more. I worked on that. Oh, I worked on that this last week too, because I actually have to send a copy off to somebody. It's my CV, but you know, it's easy to take my CV and kind of put it in a resume form depending on what the school's asking for. So yeah, I think by the end of August I'll be done with all my stuff. And I think once I'm done with all my stuff, I am going to do a writing boot camp, and I'm going to help other people. And that'll be another thing that I'm going to ask for money for, but it's going to be to help you all. So if you think that'll be helpful to you at that point when I'm done with my stuff, and maybe you heard what I read here and you're like, oh my gosh, like I want help doing something like that, hit me up in a couple weeks, or just come back here in a couple weeks. I'll advertise the boot camp and we can do it together. I'll help. I have some cool writing tools and a bunch of stuff at my disposal. I am an educator. I have a big background as an educator, so I'm passionate about that, and I would love to help you all. Like, I think in one of my videos, I was sitting here and I was like, oh, thank you guys so much for supporting me, this, that, and the third. And I was reflecting on that, and I was like, yeah, some of you might be doing that out of that part of your heart, but like, honestly, I think the more important thing is forget me. Like, how is this helping you, right? And I think in one part of how this channel could be helpful to you on the law school side is just seeing somebody like me make it. I think another piece of how my channel could be helpful to someone like you, giving you these resources and showing you what I've learned over the course of doing this process twice now. This is my second time doing this application process. I went through this once before, learned a lot. I'm sharing that with you all, and that'll help you learn from things I did well, my mistakes, and I'm going to do this again, and we'll see the results, and you can watch that. Another part about how this is helpful, I literally offer tutoring, and I have some free tutoring videos on here. So I think, yeah, be selfish in this, and you probably already are, but I'm just making note of the fact that I was reflecting on that. I was like, girl, bye, I don't matter. I matter to me and my family, but to you all, I need to be helpful to you. So I'm doing my best here, and that's why I'm here in the first place. So thank you for allowing me to be helpful to you. Thank you for chiming in and with the comments and likes, and all that matters. And yeah, thank you for having me be a resource for you. All right, that's it. See y'all later. See you next video.